And I was like, oh, sod it. I'm going to go and create that pay-as-you-go admin support because I didn't want staff, I didn't want appraisals, I didn't want budgets, I didn't want to have to answer to anybody else. So I picked up the phone and I rang this insurance broker and I said, I want to do admin support on a pay-as-you-go basis, but I think I probably need insurance. And the guy said to me, so you're going to be a VA then?
Okay. Amanda, owner of VACT, welcome to Rad-Ventures, the podcast that takes you on an exhilarating journey through the lives of entrepreneurs and business owners. Great to have you on the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Cool. Long time coming. I've followed you for about 4 years, I think, if not a little bit longer, on social media. Had a couple of interactions with you, but never spoken face to face.
No, and we're fairly local to each other, actually. So it's
we
amazing
are stones throw up the road. Yeah, crazy times. Though I must admit, because amongst other things, which you're going to tell us in a minute for VACT, you now run the VA conference and awards, right?
I do. Based in Bournemouth.
Yes, at the Hilton in Bournemouth.
Mm-hmm.
I very nearly attended this year.
Well, we need to change that for next year and make it from being a very nearly to a booked and I'm attending.
Yeah, well, perhaps you might need me as by next year, by the time this podcast blows up, and your episode is going to be the one that sends us skyrocketing to fame. Okay. You'll be booking me as a guest speaker on how VAs can transition to podcasts, maybe.
I was going to say, there's no pressure in this here at the moment, is there, on this episode?
Yeah, no pressure, but if this isn't the best one ever, then that's it. I'm packing up being a VA tomorrow.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure it is the best.
Yes, I like it. Right, okay, you tell us all about yourself, then we'll talk about the VA world, and then we'll talk about your history. That sounds like a plan, doesn't it?
Okay, so about me, I'm Amanda Johnson. Been in the VA world 12 years, but I'm a mum, I'm a wife, I'm a military veteran, I'm the laundry fairy, I'm the cleaner in this house, the school run driver, all of those things. There's a complete mix. But professionally, I run VACT, I run the VA Training Academy, the UK VA Conference, the UK VA Awards, the Be My VA Directory. I'm a member of the Society of VAs Advisory Board. I'm a member of the PA Shows Advisory Board. And yeah, all things VA, really.
You sound very, very busy.
Bag of balls and juggle, it feels like. Yeah. I can't juggle, but it certainly feels like I have a bag of balls and juggle.
I suspect if you had a bit more time, you could invest some time into learning how to juggle.
Yeah, probably. I don't have any time. I'm a mum to 2 boys, and so as a parent, you know what that's like. They have a much better social life than I do, so hence the taxi driver and everything else in there. So,
yeah, my girl does. I've only got the one, but my girl does swimming. So Monday nights and Wednesday nights is anywhere from an hour and 15 to 2.5 hours of her in the pool.
Yeah.
Well, she could go there technically on her own, but
we don't, do we? We're the parent, and therefore we go. So yeah.
I think as the parent, if you could sit there for 2.5 hours and you could watch YouTube and learn stuff, or you could play on social media and talk to your community, or you could drop her off, make sure she's in, changed, ready to go, and then afterwards you could come back. But I think that seems like more pressure than having to go back. So you just think, oh well, I'll just watch my favorite vlogger or something on YouTube and pick up some tips. I
was going to say, for me, we have our youngest son plays rugby, so actually Wednesday evenings it's rugby training, and at the moment I've been doing somebody else's course, and everything is Wednesday evening, literally at the same time as he is on the rugby pitch. So I've been known to stand there with my phone and my earpods in, like trying to watch this video and engage. And it doesn't really work on Zoom when they're running and things like that. Or the other day I did say to him, Jacob, I love you dearly, but Mummy needs to sit in the car tonight and watch this so that I can write notes. And he went, oh, that's okay. I was like, thank God for that. So yeah, it's a juggling act.
Yeah. So as we go further and further into winter, and it looks like we're having a cold one on the south coast this year so far, you'll be like, "Oh, call tonight. I'll be in the car."
Yeah, maybe. Or encourage my husband that he needs to go and do rugby training, and I'll stay at home.
Yeah, he should go and do rugby training. Okay, so 12 years in the VA world.
Yep.
Prior to that, military. And I know from your magical form that you filled in when we reached out that you were in the Navy, right?
Correct. So, where would you like me to start about the Navy?
All right, we'll leave the Navy for a second, and we'll come back to the VA world because we got sidetracked
Okay.
with children. But we will talk about the VA world. We'll do that after this next bit because that will segue nicely. Okay, so presumably then you didn't always want to do VA work, VA trainer, VA, and mum with all these magical hats on.
Nope.
So what is it that when you were at school? What is it you fancied doing?
So from the age of 8, I always knew I wanted to join the military. So I come from Cornwall, not much money, not many jobs, etc. Jobs were either retail, tourism, or fishing. Didn't want to do any of those. And so from the age of 8, I always wanted to join the military. And the reason for that is they got paid every month, they wore a uniform, and I believe they saw the world. Fast forward to, I joined the Navy, well, in those days, girls weren't allowed to join at 16. Boys were allowed to join at 16. Girls weren't. Girls had to be 17. So I joined the Royal Navy at age 17 and literally grew up in the military. That's the best description I can give you. And so I joined as a junior rate, the lowest of the low at age 17, you're called what's called a junior, and then worked my way up. And then in, what year was that? 1997, not 2007, 1997, I got my commission and became an officer, and then worked my way up through the officer ranks as well.
Oh, nice. So for visitors, for viewers or watchers or listeners that have listened to the podcast so far, they know that I did public services at college.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hopefully they know. So I've had experience at the RAF on RAF bases. I've had experience with the Army on 2 occasions at 2 Army bases, but I never did anything with the Navy.
Mm-hmm. The senior service.
But yeah, so the Navy people will say. But interestingly, I think you said in your form that your husband's in the Army, right?
He is, yeah. Was.
Which one
he
is
was.
it? Was. So Pongos, aren't they?
They're bongos, yeah.
Yeah.
But he would say he wasn't a real soldier, although he'd probably shoot me for saying that right now. So my husband was a professional musician in the Army. So he played bass trombone and was in various Army bands. And he served for 25 years. So I served for 23 years. He served for 25 years.
Yeah. Still a Pongo, though, isn't he?
Exactly. And
yeah.
Army-Navy rugby match is still war in the Johnson household.
So, yeah, hey, is it HMS Raleigh, isn't it, where you train?
Yes. So that's where I did my basic training, and it's where I did my trade training, yeah. So down in Tor Point.
That's Plymouth way.
Tor Point.
Yeah. I always get confused. I'm like, Portsmouth, Plymouth, Portsmouth. And the camera's reversed, so I don't even know which way I'm actually pointing. So, okay, so 23 years in the Navy, worked your way up to officer.
Yes, worked my way up to Lieutenant Commander.
Pretty good going. I would salute you, but I don't actually know how. So there you go. But as with all these shows, with the shows we've had veterans on before, we appreciate your service and we appreciate what you did for us.
Thank you.
Testing times on the horizon, I think. But we won't go down that route.
Yeah, let's not get political.
Yes, no, we avoid that. Like I was going to say like a plague or like a coronavirus on here, but you know, it's a joke here somewhere. Okay, so what did you do after you came out then? So
this is where my story probably gets interesting and probably almost needs a trigger warning for some people. So in 2003, my husband and I both served in Iraq. We came home from Iraq and we went off on holiday to Fuerteventura, bought a house, and at that point we decided we wanted to have children. And all of a sudden, we were told we couldn't have children. And it was like, oh, okay. Don't know why. Long story short, it didn't happen. Then in 2007, I was the logistics officer of HMS Portland in the Caribbean, tracing drug runners, doing humanitarian relief, all those sorts of military stuff. Came home from there, and off we went back out to Fuerteventura with my husband. I will just add that bit. Came home from Fuerteventura that time, pregnant. And it was like, where the hell did you come from? Because we had no idea how that happened. I don't need the birds and the bees story, although I'm still waiting for my mum to tell me it. But we came home from there pregnant, and we were pregnant with twins. And unfortunately, in June 2008, my children were born, but they were born extremely prematurely, and then they died. And they lived for 8 hours and then passed away. And what happened then is I reevaluated life, and I realised that life was too short. And I rang a very senior military officer and said, sir, I'm leaving. He said, no, you're not. I said, yes, I am. He said, no, you're not. I said, I am. He said, you're 18 months from pension, you're going nowhere. And I said, no, I'm going. I've reevaluated life. Life is too short. Actually, I don't want to be in the military anymore. And I loved the military, and I was good at what I did, but it wasn't for me anymore. And so he refused to let me go, and actually he talked sense into me. So I stayed, and then I fell pregnant with what's now my eldest son, James. And at that point, the military were doing voluntary redundancy, but I never seemed to be eligible for this thing. So I was like, oh, okay. So then the Navy said to me, well, would you go to Belgium for us? We know you're a candidate for redundancy, but would you go to Belgium? So I said, yeah, I'll go to Belgium. So Andrew was just leaving the army at that stage, because that same reason as I was. But we thought, do you know what, we'll go and live in Belgium, go and enjoy Europe. By then, James was 2, or just coming up for 2. He was just under 2. So we moved out to Belgium. And then whilst I was out in Belgium, I got made redundant. So it was like, okay, let's pack everything back. And then we came back. But when the children died in 2008, I did what lots of people do during grief. Is I spent money. New double glazing, new gas central heating, and I could never ever get hold of the tradesman. And I used to sit there on my floor and think, God, do you know what? You need admin support on a pay-as-you-go basis, as and when you need it. And I thought I'd created this whole brand new concept of providing admin support. So fast forward to when I left the Navy, I started to apply for jobs, and I was like, I would apply for jobs and everyone would say, oh, you're overqualified. You don't have that piece of paper. You don't have this. You don't have that. And I was like, oh, sod it. I'm going to go and create that pay-as-you-go admin support, because I didn't want staff. I didn't want appraisals. I didn't want budgets. I didn't want to have to answer to anybody else. How naive I was about the VA industry at that point. But I thought, do you know what? You probably need insurance. So I picked up the phone and I rang this insurance broker and I said, I want to do admin support on a pay-as-you-go basis, but I think I probably need insurance. And the guy said to me, so you're going to be a VA then? And I said, going to be a what? He said, you're going to be a VA. I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. He said, a virtual assistant, pay-as-you-go, admin support, as and when you need it, freelance admin. That's what you're going to be. And I was like, oh, yes, that's what I'm going to do. And so then I sort of did the research, and then that's how I got into the VA industry. So the reality is, officially, I've only ever had 2 proper jobs, careers, Royal Navy and the VA world. I have done other little bits, i.e. I worked in a nightclub 2 nights a week when I bought my first house in order to pay my poll tax. I don't know if you're old enough to remember poll tax, but that's why I did it. What else have I done? I worked in a nightclub 2 nights a week. I used to enjoy bar work. It was a great way of having a social life when you didn't earn a great deal of money. It's like, oh, okay, I work behind a bar. So yeah, so that's me really. Haven't really done anything else.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a lot to unpack there, and obviously, sorry to hear about your twins.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't imagine it must have been devastating. And the reevaluating your life, I can imagine that now you are glad that officer, your senior, your leader, talked you into staying for that little bit extra.
Yeah.
It was a bit shitty of them to make you redundant once you got to Belgium, though.
It was, because actually Belgian beer is very nice, Belgian chocolate's very nice. And the job that I had, I looked after 3,500 people in 15 locations across 10 countries. So it was great fun because you could go and visit them, you would go and do stuff. But actually, we would get to Friday and I'd finish work on a Friday. My husband and I would look at each other and go, where should we go? Oh, sorry, let's go to Maastricht for the weekend. Let's go to Luxembourg. Let's go whatever. Because you can. That's the thing, is you can just literally go, sod it, where should we go? And that's what we did. So I miss that quality of life. But yeah, well, it's all good fun.
Yeah, I watched a video a couple of days last week on YouTube. It just kind of popped up on the suggestions, and it was a guy. He'd planned on a random Thursday. He was going to see how many pints in different countries he could drink, and he had a couple of rules. It had to be an actual bar. It couldn't just
Yep.
be like opening a tin of beer in his hotel room or whatever on the train. And he did was it 6 in the end or 7? But he started in Paris, shot over there, and then from there he just kind of all over the place. And I was like, wow, whenever I think of, and this was all in the space of one day. He ended up staying in Luxembourg, I think, overnight, and then presumably came back to
Nice.
London in the morning. But what with being like West Country, I always think, oh, well, it's a day up to London alone. Never mind, jumping over the sea there and nipping to Paris or Germany or Netherlands. But so I love the fact that you had that in Belgium where you could just and it's quite central, isn't it? So you
But
just
sorry, we still go to Belgium every year now. We absolutely
yeah,
love Belgium. So we'll still go back. There's a zoo in Belgium called Paradiso, and it is absolutely amazing. And when we first went to Belgium, everyone said, oh, you'll need an annual pass to Paradiso. And I said, no, 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 no. I'm not like every other Brit abroad. I'm not doing that. We went once, we bought an annual pass. And
yeah.
we still go back every year now to go to Paradiso, and it's amazing. But nowadays, we'll go over, we'll take the motor home, we'll park up the night before, we'll go into Paradiso for the day. We'll then spend the day at Paradiso, but then we'll drive 2 hours to Holland, get to a campsite in Holland. We'll go in shopping and outlet shopping in Holland, in Roermond or whatever. And then literally the following morning, we'll drive 20 minutes, half an hour into Germany to do a grocery shop, to then come back to Holland, to then go and do whatever else we are. Because literally it's so accessible. It's like, okay, let's go and do it. And because my husband spent so many years in Germany, there's certain things that you can only buy in German supermarkets that he's like, we'll go and buy that. It's like, okay, fine,
Yeah.
off we toddle.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm going to put that zoo on my bucket list.
Definitely. Your daughter will love it. Absolutely
Yeah.
love it.
It's one of those where it's like, if anything else comes out of this podcast, proper fame, fortune, Joe Rogan on the phone asking me to be his like backup host or something. If that none of that happens, at least if I go to Belgium to go to that zoo before I die, then yeah, I'm in. This podcast has been worth it.
Okay. I'll keep you to that.
I'm gonna get like weekly update requests, aren't I? Like, have you booked your flights yet? No.
Oh, to be fair, I would always drive though to Belgium, actually,
Oh yeah.
because it's one of those, it's 2 hours the other side. So, yeah, seriously, go drive. And then I can share with you some great places to buy your beer and buy your chocolate to come home as well.
Sounds awesome. Right, let's talk about VAs then.
Okay.
A lot bigger than it used to be.
It is. And she says with a pause and a sort of thing. In 2008, the VA industry was the fastest growing industry in the UK. Okay? Since then, yes, it's grown, but I don't think it's saturated. You'll get people who sit here and go, oh, it's saturated and all of that. It's not. It's just a different way of working. I don't think what's helped is some paid employed roles for remote workers, calling them VAs. That doesn't help the issue. But I don't think it's oversaturated, or yes, it is bigger, but I don't think that's an issue either. I think it's quite fun actually
Yeah,
being bigger.
yeah. It's not something I've experienced an issue with. I've never had someone like get off my turf. Though I did joke with that with someone, and they never actually spoke to me again since. So, yeah, they clearly didn't get my sense of humour. Um,
I think it's a really
it was a,
collaborative industry. I mean, when I
I think
first
so.
first started networking in this area, I went to one networking event and there were 6 VAs in the room. And everybody else went, oh, God, that's awful. And it was like, well, hold on, no, I do this, they do that, they do that. Actually, some people are like my personality and others are going to hate my personality. Do you know what? That's absolutely fine. And so we never had an issue with the fact that there was multiple VAs in the room. And actually, we would quite often refer work to each other.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Is like, I mean, it comes under one title, doesn't it? But ultimately, they're so different. You can be so different from what one person does to the other.
Correct.
Like, for example, my main stuff is really inbound sales, customer service. Whereas, you get other people who are specializing in newsletters, some people who are doing diary management all day,
Yep.
some people are taking minutes and typing up notes.
Yeah. And we're all different and we all come from a different background, different core values, and a different set of skills.
Yeah. So VA is a term, though. I said this on the last episode, which hasn't been published, though. I'm not into it. I don't like it.
It's just a job title. It's a way of working. I'm going to say, don't get me on my soapbox. There are certain terms I really don't like OBM, Chief of Staff. Now, for me, Chief of Staff is very much a military role, but there is an expectation, or there are trainers out there going, hold on, you're not successful unless you transition from being a VA to an OBM and then an OBM to a Director of Ops or a Director of Ops to a Chief of Staff. That's all bollocks in my opinion. It's a job title and it's about what you do for your people and the difference that you make. Don't get hung up on the job title.
It's not the title so much as the term. Because as with virtual assistant, I know it's because it's like you operate mostly virtual and you're an assistant, but it's like a virtual assistant gets confused if you Google it now. Don't do it right now because we Riverside and the bandwidth, etc. Don't use the internet. But you get Siri, Google, the other one that's the Samsung one, and the one that sits in the magical Amazon boxes that I won't say its name because it's listening.
Is it listening in your living room at the moment?
Yeah, it does. And if
Can I say it? Can I say it?
no, don't say it. Well, it's quite far away, so and I've got speakers on, so it won't hear you. Headphones, I mean.
Damn.
But yeah, I mean that you Google that, and that's what you get.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. What would you like to be called instead?
Well, I call myself freelance administrator.
Yeah.
Though technically my job title that I chose is founder, master of the Radmin Assist universe, and principal assistant.
Nice. So it's still got the word assistant in there.
Yeah, of course. I am a go-to professional sidekick.
I thought you said psychic then, not sidekick. I had to really think about what you were saying then.
I had that problem with a French lady once before as well.
For me, I just think I don't get excited by the job title. I used to have a slide and I can't find. I've got a slide of 24 different job titles that I see on a regular basis for the VA industry, and they're the freelance administrator, they are the freelance PA, secretary, and they're the most common ones. I've got 24 of them. I used to have a list of about 50, and I cannot find that really safe place where I have saved it in my Dropbox folder. But I will do one day as I'm going through it and I will find it, because I think they are just titles. And it's more about, if you want to call yourself a freelance administrator or a virtual or whatever, then that's absolutely fine. There's a couple of VA trainers who get on their soapbox about VAs who work on site for people. And I'm like, do you know what? If that's the difference between making money and not making money, do you know what? That's absolutely fine. If that's what you want to do, if you want to work on site for your clients, who is it for me to say, no, that's not acceptable? It's like, tough shit.
I do work on site for a client.
Yeah. And do you enjoy it?
I like it. I like speaking to someone else, being in a different place.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and I don't. There's an aspect of having to do front office there, which obviously, as a back office professional, I don't enjoy so much because you know what the public are like.
Yeah.
Um, Darlings that they are. Thank you for listening. But you know what I mean.
But it's
Um,
but it's the difference sometimes. I used to do some work for a homeopath in the New Forest. And once a month, I used to actually go to her offices. Now, her office was in her garden. It was a very beautiful house, beautiful garden. It was very serene. There was no mobile signal whatsoever, and it would take me 20 minutes to drive there, etc. And I used to absolutely love it because I could just get in there, do what she needed, which made a huge difference to her business. But at the same time, nobody else could talk to me. No, my emails didn't work. Nothing else happened. It was like, do you know what? I'm going to come and do it. And it was almost like people used to say to me, oh, do you charge extra to be on site? I was like, no, it's like therapy because nobody can talk to me and nobody can do. But it's our decision to make that. It's not somebody else's decision to say it's right or wrong.
yeah, yeah, of course. It's almost as and like for me, I'm like, they're like, do you charge to go there? I'm like, no, that's like bonus, like little drive, clear my head. Yeah,
Get
like
out of my office, see some other
yeah,
people, somebody
see
else
an
make
actual person
coffee.
in real
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
Yeah, I like making the cups of tea. I like doing the washing up just before I go. Can't do the won't do the washing up at home. No, no, not for me. But yeah, um, yeah, cool. So, talk to us then about VACT. How did that get started?
So VACT has actually been around since 2007. It was previously owned by a lady called Carmen McDougall. And when I left the military, typical military, I needed to do a course to make sure I had the piece of paper that said I knew what a VA was and how to be a VA. So back then, there were only two main VA trainers. There was Carmen McDougall and there was a lady called Lilac Bullock. Now, Lilac is still around, but she's a marketing mentor and trainer and whatever nowadays. And Carmen's not in the industry. But I did what was then the VA Mastery course with Carmen. Then 6 months later, I became Carmen's VA. Then in 2014, I became a licensed trainer for VACT. Now, what that meant was I had the license to train in the south of England for her business. But 6 months later, she went, do you know what, I'm just going to close it all down. I've decided I'm going to go and do something else. And I was like, hold on a second, I've invested way too much money in this. And so I said, okay, I'll buy the company. So in 2014, I was running my own VA business, but actually I bought VACT and I ran the two side by side. But by 2016, I had another child who didn't like to sleep. So I had two children that were both young. My husband had launched a company. I was running two businesses and I just felt I was being pulled in 100,000,001 directions. It wasn't even 101, it was like 100,000,001 directions. I was just like, no. So I decided to sell my doing business, which was called Your Executive Secretary. So I sold that and decided to focus just on coaching, training and mentoring. Because when you're in the military, that's what you do anyway. You coach, train and mentor people through the ranks. So it was a very natural progression. And prior to this recording, we were talking about what do most VAs do? How do they grow? They either become a trainer or they go and do something else. Well, when I launched my Your Executive Secretary business, my doing business, my goal was to either take employees within 5 years, franchise within 5 years, or to move into that training and coaching space. As it was all much quicker than that, but that's what actually happened. So everything sort of got merged and changed in about 2016. And since then, I've been running VACT. Now, people say to me, oh, yeah, but how do you keep your hand in? Well, actually, I still do admin for my husband's company. I do HR, ops, finance, marketing, and all of that in order that I can still actually play with software, understand what businesses need, and still talk to people. Because otherwise, I'd be sat here in my little ivory tower going, oh, yes, I know what's right, and No, I don't, because actually I'm not being business focused.
Like a disconnect, kind of in your own bubble. This is how it was.
Yeah,
I like it, and maybe you should. I don't know if you've thought about podcast, but I think you should start one because listening to your talk then. You mentioned the military, and then you mentioned looking to doing training, etc. And then I was like, yeah, I'm gonna say in a second, your military background pushed you to want to train people. You beat me to it.
yeah.
Then I was like, right. Then we'll talk about the progression of VA businesses. I'll ask you how far you got with it. Were you doing it on your own? Were you just you and your business? That's it, or did you grow it? Did you have staff? Did you have um, subcontractors? Oh, you beat me to that one as well, nearly.
Well, I did actually grow my team. So by 2013, I had a team of 7, and by 2014, I had a team of 17 associates. Now, I didn't use all
Oh, nice.
associates at any one time.
Hmm.
It's all about what did clients need. So I had one associate who she did all of my transcription work. Yes, I could do it, but I was shit. I wasn't very good at it,
Mm.
and I didn't enjoy it, and I'd get bored. So it was like, why am I doing this? The first time somebody got me to do it, I did it, and I was like, God, I hate this. Literally, it was like, don't like this. So in the end, I just went, not doing it anymore, took it off my website, and then a client came along and he went, can you do transcription? I was like, yeah, of course I can, but I'm not. And I literally brought somebody in to do it, and that was my first associate, and then it grew and grew. So I had a team of about 17 at one stage.
Nice. Were they associates and employees?
No, all subcontractors,
Okay, all associates then, yeah.
all associates.
Because I mean that's a thing all in itself, isn't it? You get some that go in office employees, even though it's obviously providing remote assistance,
Yep.
and then the majority of people have the associate model where you're sat there working at your kitchen table or your home office, and then someone else is working at their home office or at their kitchen table, etc.
Yep.
Um, oh, don't knock the microphone, Richard. Cut that bit out. Just a second. It's the bridge of my nose a second, and then I shall resume. Might just leave that in just for fun. It
Just
doesn't
leave
always
it
go to plan.
in.
Yeah. Cool. Now you are quite a big name in the old VA industry now, and not surprisingly, having been in it for quite some time, and all the roads and things that you've got involved in it. Just thinking off the top of my head, I could think of one more person, I think, other than you, that runs courses, etc. That's kind of mainstream, as it were. Um, but I can't think of any more. But that's probably because we're mid flow on the podcast, and I've got other things in my mind.
There's about,
Um,
I mean, the Society of VAs runs a list of approved trainers. Approved, I'm not sure is the right word. We're trying to find the right phrase there. But trainers who have met a set of expectations. And yet you're right, some of them are very left field and some of them are very right field and some of us are normal. There's a few of those other VA trainers I've actually trained who've actually done my mastery course or I've coach trained and mentored over the years. But you'll have some trainers who are very cheap and it's all about the volume and they just want lots of people. And then you'll have others who go, no, do you know what? This is about helping you build a business and it's about from the foundations upwards. So, yeah. But we all get on very well, she says, thinking about it.
she's like, yes, yes, of course we do. Yes. Now that's reminded me of what else I was going to say before I went onto the podcast tangent. Actually, we never finished that. Are you going to? Is there a podcast in the pipeline, or have you done one before?
I've been guests on lots of people's podcasts, but no, I haven't done my own. I'm not sure, with everything else that's going on in my life, that I have enough time to commit to it. And for me, if you're going to do something, you do it properly. And I
Yeah.
don't feel that actually I have that ability to commit to it week in, week out, etc.
Yeah, I think. I mean, of course, you're right there. I went into it quite naively, thinking, just a quick hour conversation with people once a week, if you're lucky, and then, just bam, whack it on the internet. And it's not like that at all. You've got the preamble chat, the afterwards chat, the download while you're waiting for the download. Then you've got all your artwork, your editing, all that, etc. But I do think you would have some absolute gems that you could share on the medium. And of course, you're great at hosting because you've got all that military experience of having to just rock up in a room and do what you do. And every military person I've met or known just rocked up, said it as it is, and delivered what they need to deliver. But yeah, so
I'm
you
going to
heard
ask
it
you a
here
quick
first.
question.
Yeah.
Do you track your time for how much the podcast actually does take for you in your business?
Well, if the tax man's asking, then yes. If
I'm sure HMRC is
if
listening to this, but in all
yeah, of course
seriousness,
they are.
for me, that was one of those things, because you hit the nail on the head. It's not just an hour's call; it's the toing and froing to get somebody booked in. It's that preamble. It's actually, who do I want? If you think about it, how long do you take in thinking? I have guest experts in my training academy, and actually, sometimes I'm like, two, bing, 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 and this is meant to be easy. We're VAs, or we're coaches. We've got online calendars. This should be simple, but it's not. It's a much longer process. So
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a rough estimate of time taken. Just for a start, if you're episode 28 officially,
yep,
2 failed episodes, which were around an hour, we put an hour on most of them on average. So we're already at 30 hours since Friday, the 2nd of August. Not That's not including the thinking time of the show layout,
yep.
all the artwork I did previously, the artwork that I have to do and then all the extra bits in afterwards for an episode. They're probably, I don't know, 3 to 4 hours ish each.
Yeah, I was going to say, I reckon you're pushing probably 100 hours. At least.
Probably not there yet. I reckon about 75.
Okay. But
But that's only because I've only published the 12 episodes, I think it is.
but,
And so
but you've had all of those oh, okay, so you do the 3 to 4
so
hour bit as you...
I've got yeah, we're like 14 episodes recorded ahead. I loaded it. The August I spent basically podcasting.
Yeah.
It was like I had 3 days, and I did like 3 episodes a week. One week I did 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got loads of them saved up, and so I've got to obviously do that work and then edit them and stuff like that as they come out weekly. Because I can't afford to spend any more time on it because I've got to do client work in the interim.
And that's the thing. It is that sort of balance. It's interesting when you say podcasts. I thought you were going to say, is there a book? And no, there isn't a book either, because for me, for 4 years, I had write a book on my goals list. And do you know what? That chapter 1's been written so many times, and that sort of schedule of what I'm going to write about has been written so many times. But I could never get past it, or there was bits of it that thing. And then I sat there one day and went, I don't want to write a book. Why am I writing it? And I was writing it because everybody else expected me to write it, not because I wanted to write it. And so literally, the reason for that is my worry and my fear is it was going to be out of date before it was even published. And we've all read books about the VA industry a year in and gone, well, that's bloody rubbish, and thrown it out the window.
Yeah.
And so I literally, 2:00 one morning, took it off. I woke up, I wasn't sleeping because I was worrying about this bloody book. And I was like, right, that's it, not doing it. So I walked down the stairs, took it off my whiteboard and my goals list, sent my coach an email at 2:00 in the morning and went, I've decided I'm not writing this book, and I went back to bed and I slept like a log. And it was like amazing. And what I realised is I took the pressure off, and it was like, nah, do you know what? I'm only doing this because somebody else has told me to do it. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I've had the same thing with aspects of work for clients. And I've wound myself up about it. I've been like, oh, yeah, that's kind of a stalled project. Spoke to them about it and said, this is not happening. This is not happening. Data. I cannot build bricks without clay, as old Sherlock Holmes said.
Yep.
And they went, yeah, okay, no worries. It's cool though. And I was just like, oh, And then I was like, right, now we start to take that off the table. And then I was like, wow, like the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders. Like, okay, guess we don't do that anymore. And so yeah, that came off the website. No, sorry, if you want that, I know someone who's amazing at it. They can do it.
And that's the thing. It takes away that pressure.
But yeah, the book, clearly not the right time. Clearly, or maybe not the right subject. Something down the line, Amanda. I can feel it in my bones.
Okay.
Right. Speaking of podcasts,
Yep.
it wouldn't be a podcast if we didn't mention Yellow Tuxedo. Big fan of theirs. Alan has actually voice noted me while we've been on the episode. But I was listening to a podcast of theirs a couple of weeks ago, and you were mentioned in it
Once
multiple
or twice.
times. Yes, multiple times. I think they actually dubbed it the Amanda Johnson episode.
They did, bless them.
And yeah, that's when I heard about I obviously knew about the academy thing, but it's when I heard about your master course, because I can't remember Laura, that's it. Laura was on there talking about she'd done it, she mentioned you, and then it gone from there. But obviously I already knew that they'd done the VA Awards a couple of years ago now.
Yep.
Cool. So I think 40 minutes is the longest it's ever taken us to get to the questions. So, so I think we'll do those now.
Okay.
We'll just go straight into it. What's been your favourite age so far?
Do you know what? I've been worried about this question. And I say worried, that may be a bit over dramatic.
You can have a couple of ages if you want.
Well, I never know how old I am. So when people say to me, what age, so whatever, for many years, people would say to me, how old are you? And I'd go 25. And they were like, are you really? And I was like, no, but I don't know how old I am. And I would literally have to go, I was born in 1973. So to be fair, 25 is just the age I always say I am, because I never have a conscious reason to not be 25. But actually, if I look back to 25, nearly married, travelling the world, in good jobs, a junior officer, so didn't really have that much responsibility, but had lots of fun and stuff like that. So yeah, and 25, I think 25 I was serving on a ship where we were the West Africa guard ship and a different West Africa port every weekend for 6 months. So there was a lot of cocktail parties, and I taught myself to drink Bacardi. But I was the PA to the High Commissioner in Sierra Leone for a month, and all sorts of fun things like that. So I'll stick with 25.
That sounds like a good year.
Yeah, I think so anyway.
I was just trying to think about when I was 25. No, I can't. It was like, when was that? Don't know. Okay. Question number 2 then. What is your favourite quote? This could be a movie, a meme, a motivational, or any other quote you can think of.
So the one quote I was always known for saying in my military days is, I've asked you once, I've told you twice, don't push for a third, I'm not that nice.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was and I never ever gave a bollocking by raising my voice. I only ever gave a bollocking by this real calm, measured voice. So it was, I've asked you once, I've told you twice, don't push for a third, I'm not that nice. And I still use that with my children. But some of my other quotes that I love are, put your big girl knickers on, be the boss, dry your eyes, princess. So the Dry Your Eyes Princess started when I was in that last job in Belgium. I worked with a warrant officer, Cy Jones, and it didn't matter whether you were an officer or a rating, a man or a woman. If he thought you were being a bit of an idiot, he'd just look at you and go, dry your eyes, princess. And that then stemmed over into our family life and everything else at home. So it was like, dry your eyes, princess. So it's like, yeah. So those are my favourite quotes.
I like them. They're great. Cool. Question 3. This is a question I know you've been waiting for. I can see you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
It is Google Suite or Microsoft 365?
VACT and the VA Training Academy is all run on Google Suite, but I also have a Microsoft 365 license because I am of the age where I learnt to type. Well, I learnt to type on a typewriter, a manual typewriter, and then moved to a word processor, and then eventually remember computers coming in and all of those sorts of things. But yeah, so I run my business via Google, but actually I still all use the Microsoft stuff.
Okay, we'll allow it.
You're the same. I know you're the same.
Yeah, you do. You've listened to the podcast, so you know that I use both. I have to. It's like some people like Google, some people like Microsoft.
Yep.
As it happens, if Microsoft will happen to be listening to this one, I'm not impressed with them at the moment
Oh,
due to their OneDrive update. But yes, hopefully they'll fix it one day.
I've not heard about the
Uh,
OneDrive issue, and
oh
we
yeah,
we use
so
OneDrive for my husband's business, so or SharePoint actually, but yeah.
yeah, 19th of December, sorry, November, they updated the Windows desktop app, I believe. And what they've done is my client shared files can only now be accessed via the online version of Microsoft,
Right.
so not locally. So I have to do everything locally and then upload it to the OneDrive because working online with Microsoft is awful.
Yeah, no. We use OneDrive. We use OneDrive and SharePoint in my husband's business, so that actually all his team can save stuff in the company's folders. But yeah, mine drives me insane because it's like, yeah, I've got to go up online. I hadn't realised it was an issue with the app.
Yeah, well, that's what they told me anyway when I complained to them. So we shall see.
Okay.
But there we go. Right. Question 4. What app could you not live without? Hopefully it's not OneDrive.
For me, and this sounds such a cop-out answer, there isn't just one app on my phone or whatever else. I think I love the connectivity that email gives me. So I love the sort of mail app on my phone because it gives me that connectivity with others. But I couldn't sit here and go, oh, yes, it must be this AI tool or it must be this social media platform or whatever. Because for me, they're just all tools. They're tools to make our life easier. And so having that email on my phone is a bit dangerous. I would never have clients' emails on my phone. I would only have my emails on my phone. And even more so now, sort of as a coach, because actually if somebody's reaching out to go, oh, I'd like to work with you, you want to give that speedy reply back. But yeah, so I'm going to go emails, which isn't very exciting, but I'm going to go emails.
I like it. It's I think the way it connects us in the world and the way we're all connected so in the world nowadays.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's got its disadvantages, but at the same time, there's some amazing advantages. Quick ditty. Someone tagged me in a post on LinkedIn. It was she was in the VA world, I think, and it was Alan from Yellow Tuxedo. Surprisingly, they don't sponsor the show or anything, I promise. But if you do want to join the digital circus, then as the membership that they offer, I could probably get an affiliate link for you.
Okay.
That was to the listeners rather than yourself, though. If you want to join too, hit me up. So yeah, anyway, on LinkedIn, there's a picture of a jumper. It says "That's rad" on it. I think it said.
Yep.
And Alan tagged it in it. I said, thought this was you to start off with. And I was like, oh no, but it looks pretty cool. So, I investigated the post and it turns out that I think she'd won the jumper. So I look at the guy that's running the group she's in, or the group he's in, or the group he's running, whatever. And I follow him on Instagram because that's my preferred
Your
platform.
preferred channel, yeah.
And as it happens, surprisingly, he followed me back, even though he's got about 13,000 followers or something. And I was like, oh, okay, bit strange, didn't expect that, but never mind. Anyway, a couple of days ago, he ran like a run. He did a run event, and he posted on his stories, and he came last. And I put clap your hands, and I think he thought I was joking. He's an American, so well, I presume he's American. He's over across the pond, shall we say? So he might be Canadian. I don't know, but either way, I put clap your hands, and I came last. I said, "Yeah, but you did it."
Yep.
And he's like, oh, "Okay." And I was like, "And you did it. The people that didn't sign up for that race, you beat them. You went out and did it." And he's like, "I've never looked at it that way. That's great." Anyway, Friday, I go and see my friend, and he's telling me all about how his and his business employee, they're now listening to a podcast every Monday, to give them an idea for the week ahead, and they're
Okay.
into marketing, websites, graphic design, that kind of business. And so I say, "Oh, what podcast do you listen to?" He said, "Oh, it's this podcast," and he shows me on his phone, and the first name I see, who was the guest on the podcast, was the guy I'd spoken to the day before.
Yeah.
So I had to reach out and be like, "Listen, I've just been to my mate's I've just been to my mate's. He says he was to listen to this podcast, and look at the screenshot. It was this." And he's like, "Wow, small world." So yes, we are well connected in the world, and it is brilliant. But at the same time, it does have disadvantages. I think we're flooded with too much information nowadays.
And I agree with
Um,
you on that one. I think what was going through my head as you were talking there is, yes, it's a small world, but actually, have you not tapped him up for a branded merch that's Rad jumper yet?
Not yet, but I'm going to now. And we've just got our clip from our Riverside Magic clip. Riverside affiliate link available. We got our magic clip. I'm going to put that one on later, and then maybe I'm going to tag him. He might send me a jumper.
He might send you a jumper.
That would be cool, or it'd be rad. Right, let's continue. I've taken us on a massive side quest there, but let's continue with these questions because we've still got to get wrapped up. I'm gonna extend our deadline. It was an hour. I'm going to
Okay.
give us to like an hour and 10.
Okay.
That's plenty of time to get wrapped up, isn't it? Though I didn't say wrapped up then. Remember,
Okay.
for YouTube, we don't use the word wrapped up. People stop listening then.
Oh.
Okay, so question 5. How many unread emails do you have on your phone right now?
It was inbox 0 before we started this, but in the time we've been talking, in my professional email account, too many. 14 unread whilst we've been talking.
Oh, shame.
That's in my VACT email account, and in my
Yeah.
personal account, 5 since we've been talking. And I won't tell you about my other
Nice.
work mailboxes, but yeah.
No. Okay. Like to stay on top of your emails then?
I do. I feel very overwhelmed if I have too much in my inbox. If I look at my husband's inbox, I would have a heart attack
Yeah.
because he uses his inbox as the filing system.
Yeah. Like, he's got plenty of Mark Manson's emails on,
Yeah,
marketing emails to go back to later. I'll read that one, and then never does.
To be fair, no, they're all client stuff or whatever, but he doesn't
okay.
file. Whereas I file in folders.
Yeah.
I use the stack method to file or whatever. He doesn't. So it's like, it drives me insane. And he has about 1 million tabs open as well.
Oh, I can't do the whole tabs thing.
No.
It's like some of them I'm like, I'll save that for later. Or, like the daily games or brain teasers. You keep them open to go back to daily. But yeah, if it's like I've got what I need, I've seen what I need to on that one, I can't keep it open. Ooh.
No, he has 3 screens and each screen has multiple tabs. And I literally look at it and have a heart attack. It's the control freak in me.
That's military background, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But it is the control freak in me.
Right, okay. Question number 6, and our final question. If you could afford any car, you don't need to worry about the outlay costs, the insurance, the tyres, the mechanics of it, all of that jazz. What car would you have?
A car for me is about getting from A to B. So, but for many years when I didn't have any money or whatever, I always wanted a BMW Z3 because they looked cool or whatever. Nowadays, I live in the middle of nowhere, down an unmade track. Can I have something that's high and that can drive through floods? Whatever that is, I don't care what it is, but it needs to be. Actually, my husband has a Ford Ranger. We have a truck to get, that can go through the floods. So I'll take that one, actually, just a super duper one of those.
Quite like the Ford Ranger, though apparently you should buy the Isuzu Trooper version instead, because that has the Japanese engine with the timing chain rather than a belt.
Okay, and I think they're more expensive, so I'll stick with the Ranger at the moment. So, but as you said, money was no object. So just something that's high up that will drive through an unmade track and the floods when it floods.
I like it. It's a good answer. Right. that is our not quick fire questions anymore. They're called just the questions nowadays.
That was fairly quick,
Quick,
though.
yeah. I mean, sometimes we kind of like deep dive into them and get a bit too sidetracked, like the story about the rad jumper, But it did that on every single one. But I'm getting better as time goes on. What happened was somebody mentioned fluff to me. Like long podcasts were okay as long as there wasn't any fluff. And I was a bit like, ooh. And then like that's planted this seed. And now I'm like, are mine just full of fluff? Do people enjoy these stories? Do they like my little ditties when I go off on a sidetrack? And I'm like, oh God, just keep it to a minimum, Richard. Keep it to a minimum. Stick to the plan. Um,
Bless you.
Speaking of the plan, what do you want to be if and when you grow up?
I'd like to be retired.
Nice.
I'm significantly older than you, so I've got to that stage where I am ready to retire, but I can't yet. I've still got two kids that are at school and doing whatever. But the longer term vision is for my husband and I to go travelling in a motorhome for 6 months of the year abroad or whatever. And so yeah, so when I grow up, I want to be retired so that I can go travelling in my motorhome.
Surely a busy lady such as yourself would get to retirement and then although you're travelling, you might think that you needed some form of side project to do or something.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. But I don't know what that is. And so it's like, I've almost got to give myself the space to identify what that is. So for many years, there's been certain charities that support bereaved parents have always said, oh, would you come and be our chairperson or whatever? And I was never in the right headspace. I'd sit there and cry with the people or whatever. But actually, now I'm probably in a much better headspace that I could go and do some of those things. And so, yeah, that will probably be the next path, but just not yet. So I say retire, but sort of tongue in cheek, because I know, yeah, I'm rubbish at doing. I mean, if you see, well, you can't see actually, but all behind me, literally for 5 meters, is a wall of books and three levels high, and I don't even think I can sort of, and it just keeps going. I'd like to be able to sit down and read. I'd like to be able
Right.
to do all of those things that I want to go and do, but I
That
don't
sounds
have any
good. That sounds like
patience.
it sounds like a nice plan. 6 months of the year off traveling, seeing the world. 6 months doing a little bit of work to keep your brain entertained
Yes,
with a little bit of reading on the side.
the reading will be whilst I'm travelling. I normally, when we go
Oh yes, of
travelling in the
course.
summer, so we go travelling quite a lot in the summer, it was the sort of stepping stone to be able to do that longer term vision. I generally take a book a day to read. I don't get to read a book a day these days. Kids make me do activities. It's not good. But yeah, I take a book a
Yeah.
day.
Cool. So I think now is the brilliant opportunity to tell people where you hang out, where they can find you, and perhaps throw in a cheeky little plug about if they want to be a successful VA and then podcast host, perhaps they should try the VACT course.
Thank you. So where can people find me? So my website is vatrainingacademy.co.uk. And actually that's where I've finally gone to being one woman, one website. And don't try and say that fast because it's a bit of a tongue twister. But I used to have all the various strands of VACT had their own website. But actually what I've done is I've consolidated and we're now one woman, one website. And so anything, if somebody's looking to start out as a VA, there's support and help there. Or if they're a successful VA who's ready to scale and grow, whether that's with associates or whether that's something else, then actually there's resources for them there. But it's also home to the UK VA conference details, and it's home to the UK VA Awards, which I'm hoping that we might see some male entries next year when they open. So the awards open on the 3rd of February, and people can apply up until I think it's 30th of April off the top of my head. And they get presented at the UK VA conference, which will take place in Bournemouth in October.
Sounds quite interesting. You never know, you might find a couple of entries for a certain well-known character.
Exactly. And then I'm on all of the typical social media platforms, and I run Facebook communities and all of that. But actually, probably the best place to find me, and wherever people then want to find me in their preferred channel, then I would go to the website and then go and have a look at the various social media.
Fantastic. And I will put that in the show notes
Thank you.
when I publish it, or the description, depending on how you're consuming this. So all of Amanda's details will be on there. Okay, I think I won't say the magical words of wrap up, but yeah, great finishing up there of where people can find you. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I could talk to you for ages, Amanda, but I think I'm going to cut the episode off here. I'd love you to come back and we have episode 2 if you fancy it.
I would love to come back. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We'll arrange that down the line because, as you can imagine, the show has evolved over the past 27 or 8 episodes, whichever one this is. And it's only going to evolve more, I think. And what I've cleverly not done is I've not done series. So now I just have to keep going forever.
Well, you could though, after you get to a particular point, and then just go, actually, do you know what? I'm going to have a break, and then this is part of the series. And then you can start revisiting the early ones.
I've got a couple more booked in December. And then I thought I had one booked in January. And I thought, this is it. I'm going to get a break. And then I had 2 more people, 3 actually, contact me and ask if they could come on. Or it was kind of a bit like, oh, did you want to come on? Or, oh, I didn't realize. Oh, yeah, you can come on too. And I was like, oh, no, that's January booked up now. And then I think it's February, my dad's going to come on, I think, or the end of January.
Nice.
So that'll be a special episode because he's got lots of stories.
What does your dad do?
But he's a consultant, and he works in auditing, etc. But he's got some interesting stories from around the world.
Nice.
I know he wants to share. He presently lives in Australia, though he's not from Australia. So yeah, that's going to be a good episode, I think. But I did think, I'm going to get a little break, but I don't think I am. But yeah, it might be. Obviously, I'm so many episodes ahead that I could schedule in a break somewhere.
You could.
But then I like to be ahead of the train, not running after it. Right, good. So Amanda's going to come back for episode 2, where we can hear more stories of chasing pirates and stuff like that. More stories on VA training. And some more faux pas in the VA world. That sounds fun, doesn't it? I'm selling this episode before we even recorded it. I want to listen to that episode. Right. Have I said thank you for coming on?
You have, but thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, you're most welcome. So I'm just going to do a quick plug for the things. If you do want to appreciate the show, we'll just start that bit again, shall I? Quick plug for the show. I really appreciate everyone watching, listening. If you do want to support the show, there is a coffee link, so you can buy me a coffee. If you're interested in Riverside, who I'm actually talking to tomorrow, there's a Riverside affiliate link if you want to try that out. And I use Moxie for the CRM. If you want to try that, there is a link for that where I get some money, you get 2 weeks free, I think it is, if you subscribe. So do check those links out. They'll be in the description on my channel and or in the description of the video. But otherwise, thanks to Amanda for coming on. Thanks for you to listening. And I'll catch you next week. Peace out. Thanks for joining us on Rad-Ventures. Don't forget to subscribe via your favourite platform. Always happy to chat, so hit me up in the DMs. And I'll see you on the next Rad-Venture.